New Zealand is a classic case of, the whole being greater than the sum of its parts.
In 2023, they have 8 out of 20 in terms of wins in ODIs.
The good things about the squad is that they have batters who can play spin, and they also have decent enough spin bowlers.
Of course, New Zealand, like I said, who we'll start with. And it's always going to be a trend how we're going to break down teams for you. We'll tell you about what's making news in their camp right now, and we'll give you some of the latest news. Now, obviously, if you guys have woken up late, you must have seen that Kane Williamson is ruled out of the World Cup opener. We were being opener against England, and it's that old ACL, of course, which has plagued him. But on the bright side, there is, of course, news which is this. You must have seen on cricket.com or elsewhere in the internet, where Stephen Fleming and Satish Mushtaq will join the Black Caps in their coaching staff for the World Cup. Right, before I get into the questions and all of that, let's of course ask Nikhil first and foremost. I know it's Akshay's team, but Nikhil, how do you fancy New Zealand, just generally on paper?
They're perennial underdogs. I think they always seem to be the team that people are least interested in. But somehow come the knockouts, they're always there staring you in the face. And rightly so. I think they are one of those units who hit you as a side, as opposed to just individuals stepping up on their very given day. So I think they are a very cohesive unit, which is something that you often see with how they come up with new heroes. So looking forward to see who turns up this time. I think there are a few who I'm very eager to look at, but all of that after Akshay breaks them down.
Akshay, I'll break it down in the SWOT analysis for you in just a bit. But before that, Akshay, I just want to ask you, is it worrying signs for New Zealand? Because I was actually looking at some numbers, right? In 2023, they have 8 out of 20 in terms of wins in ODIs. Is that a plaguing issue? Or would you just say, as a Kiwi fan, look, Trent Boult and Kane Williamson, our star players, didn't play that much of those games. So we're in safe hands and we're always a tournament team.
I mean, that's definitely the glass half full side, way of looking at it. And that did play a role as well. We have to give them that. But apart from that, we'll also have to admit the New Zealand side has sort of been in a transition phase now. A lot of people have moved on, and they still, and the ones who've been brought in to fill in the shoes of, the likes of Martin Guptill, Ross Taylor, they're yet to sort of, fill in those shoes and understand their roles properly. People expected someone like Finn Allen to also make it to the squad, and he also not being there could also potentially, again, no RCB bias here, probably unnecessary, but just had to bring it out there even there. But yeah, even then, they are a side in transition, and I completely agree with Nikhil. New Zealand is a classic case of, the whole being greater than the sum of its parts, and they've always been that way. They've always been someone who've to go by the cliche, punched above their weight. If you just look at the players individually, they might not really exude a lot of confidence, but yeah, you would be sort of, counting them out at your own risk.
We'll come to that squad, and I want to get Paji's thoughts about it. But I just, of course, wanted to shout out a couple of guys in the comments. Rajay Human, of course, lending his thoughts about the Kiwi. Keep them coming through, of course. And this can be viewed later on the cricket.com app as well. Jagnath, if you're new, subscribe. And he goes on to say this time Kiwis would finish at the bottom half, and they can't do it. Bowling this week in middle order doesn't give any confidence. And Rajay going on to add, New Zealand bowling is not looking well, but it's a gun side. So the Ravindra Santner, Bolt, Henry. I mean, we understand that. We'll show you the squads. Gurkhirat, my question to you is a simple one, right? When you look at New Zealand, they've made it to semi-final stage of every World Cup since 2007. Is it almost a guaranteed top 4 for them, given how they just do in ICC tournaments? They won the World Test Championship. They finished top 4 in the last 2 T20 World Cups. Are they always there and thereabouts?
Yeah, I mean, like how both Nikhil and Akshay said, that they're the classic example of a team, of a sum being greater than the parts, and how, they're always there and thereabouts, and you can't write them off. I think coming into this World Cup, the good things about the squad is that they have batters who can play spin, and they also have decent enough spin bowlers. Santner as a left-arm spinner is as good as you can get. We sometimes don't get to see a lot of him in the IPL because he's competing with Jadeja, and it's difficult to make that spot in the 11 then. And now Ish Sodhi is also coming off a 6 first. So they at least have these resources. And we know new ball bowling has been something that has always done well for them. So they have three very important bases covered in that regard. They have batters who can play spin. Conway can play spin as well as anyone. We have seen what Latham has done against spin. So uh, yeah, you can't write them off, but there are some issues which I'm sure Akshay will get into, which will probably make you feel that yeah, they may not be a one team that you would say will definitely make the top four, but if they have a few percentages going their way or a bit of luck, then there's no one that can stop them.
Like you said, that Akshay SWOT analysis is actually a really good one, and I want to tempt the viewers more and lure them in subtly. But Gurkira, just coming back to you, right? Because look at this team that they have at their disposal, and you look at the squad essentially. What are some of the immediate worries opponents look at and be like, oh, we have to watch out for him, and him? Who is that?
See, immediate worry is definitely one name that you can't like. When you think of New Zealand, you think of Trent Bolt. He will always be a worry with the new ball. You can't put that aside him. And I'm sure there's one other player who will come into the similar fray, but I don't want to name that player right now. And then now you'd know that someone like Devon Conway has enough experience of playing in India and doing well on these pitches. So Conway is there. Uh, Daryl Mitchell in the last year and a half has again been someone who's been very, very consistent. He played an outstanding knock in that semi-final in the 2021 World T20. So there are players who can just step up on that day. So you may not look at someone in the batting order and think like, okay, that this player will definitely get me. But there are enough players that someone or the other can step up on their day. So they have a lot of utility players, which why Akshay and Nikhil said that this team can be greater than the sum of it. Like the sum of this team can be greater than its part. So there isn't, and that's why all of us say that, because when you look at that batting order, you don't think that okay, one of these players can take the game away entirely. But when they come together, they can punch above their weights, which they've so often done it.
And it just makes you think about their fixtures, Nikhil, because I know they play that all-important opening game in Ahmedabad, but does it work in their favor if there's anything as strange as that? Because I know they finish off in Bengaluru, which is the cricket.com hub. But talk to me about these fixtures. And if you're a Kiwi, are you liking what you see on your screen?
Yeah, I think if you see, there are 4 games where you feel they'll probably be very good test or something that'll test their reserves, and that is the England game at Ahmedabad, the opener. They play India at Dharamshala. I'm not going to talk about it more for reasons best known to all. They'll play Australia in Dharamshala, and then they again play South Africa in Pune. Now, I think these are the venues where you feel that there shouldn't be a lot of spin, and these 4 games are where I feel they will probably be tested. The slippery game for them, I feel, is the Chennai game, where Bangladesh, if they get there, though they did beat Bangladesh at home for the very first time, it will not be easy if it is holding up and slowing, because they may have 3 players, 3 very good spinners, but Bangladesh even today they kept Sri Lanka to 263. So there is a lot to ride, and some of those games will be slippery for New Zealand.
Yeah, like Pranav, absolutely echoing your thoughts over there, and rightly so. Akshay, then it is time for us to unravel that SWOT analysis, which we're going to be doing for all teams, mind you. And Akshay, of course, has New Zealand under his belt. So take it away, my friend. What is the SWOT for the Kiwis?
Yep, and we've already spoken about the venues, the fixtures, and all of that. Now we look at the team itself. So in terms of strengths, let's go again. SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So let's go by that order. They have a fantastic top 5, and that based on current form, all of them are averaging in excess of 40. And when it comes to run scoring at the death, which has been an Achilles heel for many teams in ODIs, especially given how few ODIs have been played in the recent past. Barring the fact that a lot of ODIs were played in the month of September in the lead up to the World Cup, not a lot of ODIs have been played in the last couple of years or so. If you compare it to how many T20Is or even tests have been played. So one is, of course, Death May, their batting really seems stable. They've got the likes of Daryl Mitchell, who've been striking well, lower down the order. Mitchell Santner has also come up with a couple of crucial cameos for them. His Shodhi has also improved his batting, something we saw even in the Bangladesh series. where the innings which would most likely be infamous for his potential run out at the non-strikers and then him being called back, but he batted well. He scored a 30 odd in that innings as well, coming in at number 9. So that's good to see. Sorry, coming in at number 8. And then next, if we look at the batting against spin, top 3, like Gurkirat mentioned, Conway is a fantastic player against spin. Apart from Conway, they've also got Williamson in the top 3. That's 2 excellent players of spin in the top 3. Of course, there'll always be a caveat of Williamson's form, him coming back from injury and all of that. But based on his numbers and based on what we've seen from him so far in international cricket, that's fantastic to see for a non-Asian team to have 2 such good players of spin right up top. And then after that, in terms of how they sort of fare in the power play, they've been really good in terms of attacking bowlers. They've been really good in terms of ensuring they don't lose wickets. So when it comes to attacking, of course, a lot of it also had to do with how Finn Allen fared for them. There were a couple of ODIs where he had blistering knocks in the power play, and then he got out. Unfortunately, he misses out for the World Cup. Will Young has made the cut. He'll be playing for them. Will Young has been very good for them, in their domestic circuit. He's really got good numbers there. But again, one more reason for them to think about or to be worried probably, or rather worry might be a very strong word, but the fact that Will Young hasn't played enough in Asia. Bangladesh series was the first time he was playing in Asia. So apart from that, now suddenly playing against top teams like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka in Asia is definitely not going to be an easy cake. So yeah, that in terms of strengths, these were a few points I wanted to cover. So what do you guys think though? I would like to,
I would just kind of jump onto it because you look at that top 5, like you mentioned over there, it is of course really giving you secure vibes. I mean, you're not going to really just expect them to do something really frenetic. I know they had an X factor in Finn Allen, who of course they don't have anymore. They have someone steady in Will Young, and I genuinely think that knowing how that they do in tournaments, everyone's just switched on. I mean, I know today they kind of, and I say today because at the time we're shooting this, we're of course in the midst of that New Zealand-Pakistan warm-up game, and they were just experimenting, like all the sides will experiment. But next, my question to you is, what are the glaring weaknesses? Because Akshay, I think, has really spoken about the strengths well. But if you look at that chart, the weaknesses, low batting averages in overs 1 to 10, and we just mentioned it. Do you think that's something which can bite them in the backside, if I may add?
See, I think that's where I feel the top order, as Akshay rightly said, will become very crucial, because if they get consistent up top, they have a guy who's known to score big when he gets going. So I think that's where a lot of owners, even with Kane injured or not, I think Devon Conway plays a massive role in that regard, because if he's able to get going, then New Zealand will be a much solid batting unit, because in this year itself he's got 400 plus runs in 8 games, averaging over 61. Strike rate is also great. So if he gets going, we talked about this in the IPL previews as well, that Conway is the kind of guy who you want to get on a run. And these are the venues, these are the conditions where you expect Conway to probably take his time. But if he gets going, that low batting average in first 10 overs will be taken care of. Will Young, whatever I saw of him from Bangladesh, I think there is a lot of potential there. Even the way he played in the last ODI, I felt was very good. So I think they have the answers, but they'll have to just execute very, very well to start the tournament well. And once they do that, I think, again, we might sound like we're saying the same thing, but they have enough players to complement each other. And I think that is what could really work in their favor, that if they have the group, the Conway stable factor up top, then somebody or the other will eventually find a way to help him get to a pass score, at least in most of those games.
And I think you hit the nail right on the head there. And I think there's no other cricketing team which comes to mind, at least in this competition or worldwide, where you think that the team is actually playing like a team, if you guys know what I mean. So Akshay, just going back to that graphic, and I'd love to hear what Gurkirat thinks about the opportunities and threats, but a little bit more about the opportunities and what they can do, Akshay. Favorable scheduling is something that we just spoke about with the fixtures, but like Nick's mentioned, there's so many players who give you 3 facets of the game. That's going to be essential in some continent place like India.
Definitely, especially in a format like ODI. There's something we've spoken about time and time again. ODIs, there's a lot of time in ODIs. So part-timers definitely would have a bigger role to play. Not just part-timers, New Zealand have plenty of good options. Glenn Phillips is more than just a part-timer now. You've got Mitchell Santner, who offers value with the bat. You've also got someone like Rachin Ravindra, who will of course be a backup option for them. But even then, all these multifaceted players, like you said, and also the likes of Daryl Mitchell, who can also offer a bit of medium pace in the middle overs. These are the kind of players whom in surfaces that's sticking a bit, where your cutters can also sort of hold on to the surface. Daryl Mitchell could be more than just a handful. And also, just one more point to add when it comes to favorable scheduling. Of course, in terms of them playing the likes of New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, India, and venues where their attack would become even more potent helps. Barring that, what also helps is the fact that they have a lot of matches that are played consecutively in the same venue, which means little bit of lesser travel, which also helps. Again, these are things, these are little details that we don't think into much, but the fact that they're playing in Dharamshala they'll be in Dharamshala for 10 days, they'll be in Chennai for around 8 days, they'll also be in Bangalore for the last 10 days. All of this definitely works in their favor. They don't have to travel much, which means they can get used to the conditions better, they can get used to whatever's going to be on offer better. So all of this will definitely play a part. So that also was one point that would help. That's also one point that will help them in terms of playing these games. And yeah, Chennai playing Afghanistan and Bangladesh, it's definitely going to be, one of those banana skin games where you would expect them to win. But you never know. Afghanistan with the likes of Rashid, Mujib, you definitely, on their day, they can definitely more than a handful for sure.
100%. Now, Bas Kunde and all the other guys in the comments, of course, love to see you here and getting in as what they're doing always. And he's mentioned his particular team and what he'd like to see the Kiwis do in their World Cup campaign. Gurkirat, I'll just bring up that graphic once again, but the threats, the big question is Kane Williamson and the miles in his leg, how much game time he has. How do you think New Zealand will kind of overcome that obstacle? Because he's a huge player, make no mistake.
See, I think when he's fit, he will come in straight away. And when he's not there, you would expect the other senior pros to step up. There's Conway. Latham will inevitably will have to play a big role in the absence of Williamson. And I think the idea would be that till the 30th over mark, they don't lose more than 2 or at max 3, and then allow the likes of Mitchell, Glenn Phillips, even Santner to then start hitting out. The good thing for New Zealand is that they have these with Mitchell and Glenn Phillips. They're also they have a lot of muscle power. So even if they are playing on slow pitches, if they've gotten their eye in, they can actually muscle the ball even on bigger boundaries. That is one advantage that New Zealand have when they are going into the death overs. Having said that, I feel the biggest issue, which was mentioned in the graphics as well, is their death bowling. Whichever bowler you pick, whether it's Bolt, whether it's Henry, whether it's Saudi, even Lockie Ferguson, or none of them are reliable at the death. Lockie Ferguson used to be a reliable option at the death some time ago, but given how he's bowled in the last 18 months to 2 years, he's also become a very volatile bowler. On his day, he could literally run through sides in the middle overs, but if it's not his day, it could get really difficult to get 10 overs out of him. In fact, it becomes difficult to sometimes get 4 overs out of him in a T20 game. So that I feel on absolute flat decks, if New Zealand don't pick up wickets, in the first 10, then it could really get easier for teams to manage around, because then on flat decks in the middle overs you are only looking at one probable accurate option, which is Santner, because Sodi also can have days where he's not landing the ball and can give you one boundary ball, which is something that we've discussed about Hasaranga, and that invariably tends to be the is a tendency of wrist spinners. So that is something where I feel New Zealand can be found out on a flat deck. If they have to bowl first and then teams get away in the first 10 overs, then there's hardly anything that can stop the opposition, and that scoreboard pressure will then come into play and probably will not allow New Zealand to bat at the pace that they would prefer to. Because again, you look at Conway, you look at Williamson, you look at Will Young, there isn't someone who would just hit out of the block straight away. Conway, we've seen even in T20s, likes to take that first to 2 to 3 overs before unleashing himself. So that could be one issue with New Zealand.
Okay, I love the points mentioned by all three of you guys there. And not to forget, lots of you guys in the comments, absolutely smart AF. Nikhil Baiju saying they need Mark Chapman at his best in that T20 International Series in Pakistan. He was destroying both spin and high pace, and that drew the series. Abbas Kundi jumping on to say Henry has improved his death bowling. And Amir the Gooner, beg your pardon, Bracewell's absence also throws a spanner in the team balance and composition. Right. So having said all things, gentlemen, where do they finish? Can we have prediction time, please? Because I'm going to ask you two things for each team. One is their most valuable player for the ODI World Cup 2023, and the second is where they will finish. So let's have it. First, I'll start with Akshay, because Akshay, let's face it, kudos for making that SWOT analysis, and it went swimmingly well. If you guys want to check more stuff like that, it's available on the cricket.com app. And of course, you guys can pause it, rewind it, whatever you want to do with it. So where will they finish at MVP, sir?
Yeah, so in terms of where would they finish, I'll say sixth. As much as I agree to the fact that in their case the whole is greater than the sum of its parts and all of that. All said and done, they have a very inexperienced side. In that, like if you look at their top six and compare it to what it was last time, they have a lot of newcomers. So barring Williamson and Latham, everyone in their top six is going to be playing their first World Cup. So it's not going to be easy. World Cup is a different beast altogether in terms of the pressure, in terms of the conditions they'll be facing and all of that. So Conway, Young, there's Daryl Mitchell, there's Glenn Phillips, all of them playing the first World Cup. It won't be easy for them for sure. And yeah, so I see them finishing at number 6. And when it comes to who do I think would be their MVP? So again, for the very same reason, the fact that they have a lineup who's playing, where most of the batters are playing the first World Cup, Kane Williamson will play that much bigger role now. And given that, also when it comes to their Detto was batting, as good as they have been, barring Glenn Phillips and Mitchell Santner to some extent, there's not a lot of firepower, so to say. Daryl Mitchell has played well. He had a very, very, very good innings in the England series. But again, he's been a bit of a hit and a miss. You can't expect he's not been able to provide them consistent returns. And Will Young, again, he had a fantastic third ODI, that 80 ball 70, like Nikhil Bhai mentioned, was very good. And the Bangladesh series was good for them in that both the games that they won saw player of the match awards being won by players who were going to be a part of the World Cup. Ish Sodhi in the second ODI, Will Young in the third ODI, players who are going to be a part of the setup coming into good form. It's always going to be helpful for them. But yeah, all said and done again, Kane Williamson will be my MVP, and 6 is where I think New Zealand will end up.
Okay, next, what about you? Because it just makes me think about my prediction, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, I think the spot is pretty much same. I think it will probably be 6 to 7. The MVP for me is going to be Tom Latham. I think he's someone who's experienced, but he's had a horrible year. He played 15 ODIs last year and this year, and so far his average is 28. Strike rate also isn't much. So I think if he's the glue that is going to take care of that role, so that Phillips, Santner, Darren Mitchell, they all are able to breathe easy. So if he doesn't do well, I think they'll probably finish 6 or 7. But if he does well, and then he's adding fuel to the fire, which Conway is able to lit up up top, then they might be able to do something even with an underperforming bowling side. So I think 6, 7. But for New Zealand's sake, hopefully Tom Latham and Conway fire to push them to knockouts.
Okay, Sachin Mandal going on to say Akshay Chupchap looking at the ODI rankings and saying I'll marry that as well. But it's crazy, right, Gurkirat? Like since 2007, maybe not since 2007, but since the last couple of World Cups, we're all hoping that New Zealand won't finish in the top 4, or people don't think that they will, but they inevitably do. So will you actually stick your neck out and be like top 4 New Zealand? I see you there.
Yeah, I have a slightly weird prediction. I think they'll probably miss out due to probably one game getting rained off, or maybe net run rate, because last World Cup they were lucky with that game getting rained. They had
but which game?
points
But which game do you see which could threaten them?
That's difficult to say, but
no, honestly, talk to me. Where is it? Dharamshala where you see rain, or do you think it's Bangalore? Imagine in Bangalore, because the weather is always like Shahid Afridi's batting. You never know what's going to happen.
I mean, yeah, even Chennai, I mean, you could get rains. See, this is just a hunch. You can't be that specific that if it really gets to that, the worst thing could be them losing out on points due to rain to one of the 4 teams which is beneath them in the rankings. That would really hold them back. My MVP is also a left armer, but it's not Trent Bolt. I feel if New Zealand have to do well, Mitchell Santner will have a huge role to play, because New Zealand have not played so much on pitches which will offer that much grip for spinners to come into play. We usually associate them with paces, but I feel in this World Cup, if you, because as the tournament will go on, even your traditional good batting surfaces will offer some grip, and we have seen this even in the recently concluded India Australia series. We saw this even in the Asia Cup. Yes, pitches in Sri Lanka are a little different, but we have seen even with the two new balls there is some grip on offer. So for me, if New Zealand have a good tournament, Mitchell Santner would be absolutely key in the middle overs with the ball. And, most teams are also predominantly right handed. So his factor or his bowling even becomes bigger. And who knows if he's in that kind of form, could even, chip in some valuable runs with the bat, because he can also bat. Ish Sodhi's also improved on his batting. So maybe that helps. But I just think that someone like Mitch Santner could really have a tournament which allows him to announce himself. It's not that he's not performed everywhere else, but he's he's a lot of people still remember him for ducking on that final ball in that last World Cup final and everything else. But I just feel this could be that tournament where he could announce himself.
Okay, super. So look, I'll finish off with my New Zealand prediction. Then I think it'll be heartbreak for them, and they'll probably finish fifth. They'll just miss out in the semi-final. And I agree with Abbas Kunde. I think Devin Conway is a nice shout out for an MVP, even though the guys have gone for a different sort of choice, and we love that because essentially it's what is sport without opinion. So good to have this New Zealand preview done and dusted, but there's more to come. Of course. So right now, you guys, of course, are watching this part 1/3 of the Mega World Cup preview. And let's move on to Afghanistan. Then before we do, please like this particular video and subscribe if you guys are new, because we're about 70 odd people away from 36K on YouTube. So it'll be a milestone that we want to break before the first ball of the World Cup.
36 is a historical number now in Indian cricket. Let us help us reach that soon, please.